Can you rename me Libabalo 317639?
Okay, Chairperson.
How am I going to explain myself?
Okay.
Again, but I'm not gonna, it's not gonna work at this point. And after, like something in me tells me
Hello?
she's not that type of person.
Chair, can you hear me?
Libabalo?
Yes, Chairperson.
Can you rename me, please?
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah, you are now.
Oh, okay, Chair. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you happy with this name?
Yeah, it's fine. I don't mind. I'm not that fussy.
Okay, thank you. Chair.
Yes, Libabalo?
Yes, Chair, do you still remember our conversation regarding the public hearings of the Jeffreka bill?
No, I don't.
Okay, remember last week we spoke about it and I indicated that there is a possibility that we might join the Standing Committee on Appropriations for those public hearings. But same public hearings were going to clash with the Joint Standing Committee on Parliament, Financial Management of Parliament.
On Friday.
On Friday 13. No, Friday 15. But it's fine. I wanted to update you. They have since changed the date to Thursday 14. But now when I spoke with the Chief Whip's office, Zama to be particular, we agreed that it is not going to work because on that day, all members must be in the House deliberating on the fiscal framework. So we'll look for another date in the next term for the public hearings on the Jeffreka bill.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
Friday 14th.
Initially, they said Friday 15th, but
Yeah.
and then I spoke with you. But now when I went back to Darren, I found out that they've changed the date to 14. So then I decided to speak with Zama to check with him because the public hearings are going to be in the afternoon on that Friday. So there is a clash now if we were to join those public hearings with the House sitting. And the House sitting on that day will be one of the business in the order paper will be the discussions of the fiscal framework, of which all my committee members must participate in that in those deliberations.
Okay. There's
Yeah.
something that be me here. Stock on the line.
Okay.
Lubabalo, good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Estelle.
Good morning, Chairperson. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I haven't spoken to you in a long time.
It's so wonderful to have you back. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we flight the agenda?
Morning wasekhaya.
Morning, wasekhaya kunjani? Angikuboni, I'm sorry. Kunjani, how are you?
Ngikhona kunjalo ku
Hayi kurehe man kuza kulunga.
kureha akube reha.
Sithokoza umoya nawo sesenyameni.
Nami benginjani ngathi hey angifuni ukukhuluma batshela ukuthi ngiyalwala bengisesibhedlela.
Hayi wena.
Hayi mara kuzaba right.
Kuzaba right sithando. Okay.
Masol ngolosihlanu kufanele ngibuyele for check up ngibekile kumathongo wabona.
Oh. Hey,
Gore
Nadim, it's a match. Le menu.
Yeah,
Moss, is she here?
No, thank you.
Honorable Moss? Whip? She's not here yet. I can't see
She's not
Recording
here
in
now,
progress.
but she was here earlier on.
Oh.
It was very, very early.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm trying to check the members. I see 17. Welcome, ENCA. And your colleagues, the media. Who else is here, Lubabalo, the members?
Sorry, Chair. Honorable Okamp, Honorable Karim, Honorable Dutoit just joined now.
Honorable Detroit, how are you?
Morning, Chair. Very well, thank you. Yourself. Morning, colleagues.
Honorable Okamp.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Great to see
Good
everybody.
Leadership, Comrade Karim, how are you?
Okay, Leadership, Comrade Dikaleri. I'm happy to be here, except Willie Alcamp, I'm not sure about, but I'll come back on that matter later.
Likewise, feelings. Likewise.
I said it first.
You always bring a smile, no matter what the situation, to my face. Thank you. A good start for the morning. Who else is here? It's Honorable Zita here. Nita, I'm sorry.
Not yet, Chairperson.
Not yet, okay. So we can start.
Maybe, okay. Honorable Ryder has joined.
Honorable Ryder, welcome. Right on time. Where's Ntate Mletsane?
Not here yet.
Mletsane is not here yet, ne? Hope he'll be joining us as we go on. Honorable members, a very good morning to you all. You are welcome to this meeting today. The meeting is scheduled, as you have seen the invite, from 10 o'clock until 12, if I'm not mistaken. 12 or 12:30.
One, Chair.
1.
Until 1, Chairperson, yes.
Oh, until 1, not 12:30. Okay. And we will request the presenters to please make sure that in your briefing, because I think the Secretariat has sent documents to the members, you emphasize or you focus on the key issues that needs our attention, so that we can give members an ample time to engage with your presentations. And I also want to believe that they have already gone through the presentation and will then listen to you, and they are ready with the questions. So we have Team Treasury, National Treasury with us, who are going to make 3 presentations. As per the agenda flattered on the screen, you will please deal with the 3 items, the 3 presentations, and then deliberations will come thereafter. And we'll now go to item number 2. Having said that, and Happy New Year to those whom I've not engaged with. Any apologies from our side? From you, Lubabalo and Estelle?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members and colleagues. Chairperson, from our side as a committee, we have no apologies. The apology that we received is from the Northern Cape, and the Northern Cape committee is unable to join us because there is a scheduled house sitting as we are sitting as a committee. We received an apology from Wanga Tibi from National Treasury. So those are the few apologies that I received, Chairperson. With your permission, Chair, may I please screen my phone? It's ringing. So it might happen that there are few apologies being sent through. Okay. No, it's fine, Chairperson. Over to you. Apologies about that. Honorable Moletsane, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. An oversight from my side, welcoming I did not acknowledge and welcome the members of the portfolio committees from the provinces. Those who are in the platform, you're welcome. And we also note, as we are on the apologies, noting the apologies presented to us. Now I will get this opportunity, I will hand over to Team Treasury. I don't know who's leading the team. National Treasury. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to honorable members.
Good morning, Osmadiji.
Yes, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So we are going to take the presentations as outlined. We will lead the presentation on the division of revenue, which Wendy will lead. And then on the second appropriation, Ms. Makazi will lead that presentation. And I hope Mahoshi Lechate is on the line to lead IFECA. Yeah. So on the division of revenue, Honorable Chair and honorable members, we are going to go through the division of revenue. We'll give an overview of the division of revenue. We will then focus a bit on provincial, local government allocations, the fiscal framework for provinces, and then go to the local government. Then we will highlight a bit the changes to the division of revenue, which we would want this House to consider. Then we have added as an annexures the response of government to FFC recommendations, which they are detailed in Annex W of the Division of Revenue 2024. We also have summarized in an annexure the recommendations to the committee, which are also detailed in the Annexure A of the budget review of 2024. So may I hand over to Wendy to continue with the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Can I use your computer?
Wendy, please, if you can, with your team, Jane. Oh, that echo. Wendy, that echo.
Good morning, everyone.
There's an echo. There's an echo. Can you deal with that and open your video, please? Yeah. Ask Jane, can you attend to that, please?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and sorry for the hiccup start. We're sharing computers, and so we realize it's echoes if we put on more than one. What we're going to do is take you through the division of revenue, and then take you through the provincial fiscal framework, then the local government fiscal framework, and then on the division of revenue new clauses. But I'm going to start with the division of revenue, and this just puts everything into perspective. The highest increases in terms of the equitable share and conditional grants, if you look at an overall share, went to local government, followed by provinces, and followed by national departments. So local government is still, despite the constrained financial position, still receiving the largest percentage increases. And if you look where the increases are located, it's on the equitable share. If you look at provinces, it's equal between, no, nearly equal between equitable share and conditional grants. And if you look at national departments, indirect grants to provinces grow by 1.5%, and indirect grants to local government decreases by 1.1%. That means there's more direct allocations now going to local government. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide is very important because if we look at the division of revenue, what we present in the division of revenue documentation is just the national transfers that go to provinces and local government, and then do a comparison of the shares. If you look at 2024-25, the share that goes to local government is 9.7%, the share that goes to provinces is 41.7%, and the share to national government is 48.5%. But if you take into account own revenues, keep in mind that municipal capabilities to raise own revenues are quite large. The capability of provinces to raise own revenues are quite low. The shares change quite a lot. The national share decreases by nearly 10%. The share to local government increases by 20%. And the share to local to provinces decrease. So if you take into account local government owned revenue as well, in terms of what they've got at their disposal to deliver services, it's 28%, which is much, much higher than the 9.7%. Can I then hand over to Bongani that will present on the provincial allocations? Thanks.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the committee, colleagues, and everyone on the platform. I will be taking you through the provincial allocations, and just to indicate that Please go to the previous. Yes, just to indicate that these are the allocations to provinces for the 24-25 financial year. And as indicated, that these allocations, they constitute about 97% of allocations to provinces, as on average, provinces are only able to raise around 3% of their budgets. And in terms of the allocations for the equitable share, as indicated, that it will grow at an annual average growth rate of 3.9%, going from around 600 million to 656 billion, sorry, not million, billion. And then for the conditional grants, growing at an annual average rate of about 3.7%, growing from about 129 billion to about 135 billion over the MTEF. And for this budget, the budget is mainly made up of additions for COE that are through the equitable share and reductions, and this is as a result of the constrained fiscal environment that was already communicated during the 2023 budget, which still continues. In terms of the updates to the provincial equitable share, we just want to make the committee aware that we have not at this point in time used the 2022 census data, as we are all aware that it was released late last year. However, in terms of the data that is needed to update the provincial equitable share, the data is not yet available, because even though some data was made available, the data we use to update the provincial equitable share has to be disaggregated at a certain level, and that data is not yet available, but we are still engaging with Statistics South Africa to make such data available. Next slide. In this slide, we are going to show what components we have been able to update using the new data, and what components we are still using the data from the 2023 budget. So this slide is showing the 6 components of the provincial equitable share. So in terms of the new data that we are able to use to update the equitable share is the 2023 enrollment data. And then we are also, for insured population, we're able to get new data from the Council of Medical Scheme and the General Household Survey. And also we're able to get new data for patient visiting health facilities. But all the remaining data is data that we used in the 2023 budget, as that is the latest available data. And just to highlight again, given this has been communicated to the committee even in previous presentations, that for the regional GDP, given that Statistics South Africa is looking at a new way of calculating that, the data that is still available is from 2019. So when the new data is available, we'll also update accordingly. Next slide, please. So in terms of the changes to the provincial equitable share, during the MTBPS, it was communicated that around the provincial equitable share was reduced by about 62 billion. And this is as a result of the constrained fiscal environment that we spoke about, and also for reprioritization for other pressing government priorities. And in terms of the reprioritizations and the additions that have been made during the MTBPS also, there was an additional 68.2 billion that was communicated as a carry-through cost for the wage agreement that happened. However, since then, there has been roughly about 4 billion that has been shifted from the provincial equitable share to conditional grants within health and education, or to pay for the COE, because there are some conditional grants that have got COE components. So it's just to make it easy for those people that are paid from those conditional grants to be paid for this carry-through cost of the wage agreement. And also there was a further addition that was made to the provincial equitable share of 37.3 billion. This is also for the carry-through cost. So this means that in total, the additions that have been made to the provincial equitable share were around 101 billion for this carry-through cost over the MTEF. And this will be summarized in slide 12 of this presentation. Next slide, please. In terms of the changes that happened to the conditional grants, there were also reductions that were made to the conditional grants for the same reason of about 27 billion over the MTEF. And also there were some reprioritization. In the 2023 budget, there was additional money that was added to the Early Childhood Development Grant, and this was specifically for the ECD results-based initiative and the ECD nutrition program. And this funding was not allocated to any province, so it was unallocated within the grant. And during that time, we did indicate that there will be conversation between the sector and National Treasury to see how best this money can be allocated. And the decision has since been made that that money that was unallocated, which means for the ECD grant, no provincial allocation was affected by this money being moved to national. And the reason why this money is being moved to national, for example, for the based is because we are also looking at trying to find co-funding from the private sector, whereby we'll get the NGOs that are willing to pay for the results, achievement of results, to sort of co-fund, so that we don't only use funding from the budget, but we also tap into other sources. And then for the results, the school nutrition program, there needs to be a coordination that happens, and it needs to also start at national. And also, when we're looking at the grant framework for this conditional grants, it does not necessarily allow for the flexibility for the implementation of this program, as we are aware that some of the ECD centers are in formal settings. So we are trying to sort of come up with the modalities of how best this can be implemented. So that is why this money is being moved to national and is in the tune of about 1.1 billion. And just to repeat again, no provincial allocation is affected by this movement of funding. And then also to indicate that we have been over time trying to consolidate funding for the different programs, even for the oncology there. Mainly it's funded from the provincial equitable share and the NTSG. However, there was still funding within the NHI grant. So that money of about 737 million is being moved from the NHI to the NTSG, but is still going to be used for the same purpose. But this is just to consolidate the funding for the oncology, so that is not all over. And then also, given the consolidation of grants that we have been undertaking, we are combining the two components that are within the NHI indirect, which is the person and the non-person services, to form a new health system component. And then in terms of the additions that have been made, there is a conditional addition for the Western Cape for the building of schools. However, this funding will flow through the adjustment budget if the Western Cape is able to meet conditions that have been put forward for this funding to flow. And just to indicate, this funding was made available through the budget facility for infrastructure. Next slide, please. This slide just summarizes sort of the details that I have said, to indicate that in terms of the additions for the COE carry through, there is an addition of about 105 billion. This is made up of 101 or 102 billion through the equitable share and about 4 billion in conditional grants. And then there was also some reductions that were made to both conditional grants and provincial equitable share, with a net addition to the provincial equitable share being about for 40 billion. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. I'll hand over to my colleague, Lisa Papakis. Thanks.
You over to you, Lisapa.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Chair, and good morning to the honorable members. I hope you can see me and hear me. So I'm going to take you through the local government parts of the changes from the 2024 budget. So on the right, really, what we're showing is all the transfers that are flowing from national government to municipalities in the different forms. So what is perhaps important to state is that the majority of these funds flow through the equitable share. So they are unconditional. So that is about more than 66% of the allocations are unconditional. I want to draw your attention, honorable members, to the growth of the equitable share, which Wendy has already alluded to. We're quite happy about that and the impact that is going to make in terms of ensuring that we do provide funding to the 11.4 to the 11.2 million households that need the services. The honorable members will be happy to see that the capacity building grants are also increasing over the medium term, because the focus is really on ensuring that we capacitate local government, but also it would be great to see that indirect grants in terms of infrastructure are decreasing over the MTF, which is something that the honorable members have been calling for. In my next slide, really, this is the various components of the equitable share. Obviously, the majority goes through the basic services, which accounts for 76.1 billion. What is important here, honorable members, is to note that we have updated the data, taking into account the bulk electricity increases of 12.7% coming from NERSA's multi-year price determination 5 for Eskom, and also we have updated bulk water by 10.8%, which also accounts for the increases that are being imposed by the water board on municipalities. This is all to ensure that we fully compensate municipalities for the kind of increases. Now, in terms of this slide here, honorable members, we're just looking at some of the changes post the conversations we had prior to after MTBPS. There was a 5.1 billion reduction that was imposed in terms of the general fuel levy sharing with metropolitan municipalities. That has just been reversed, which is something that is great for our municipalities. However, being able to reverse that, it meant that we had to take that money from some of the areas that could accommodate additional reductions. So there were further reductions that were made in terms of the INEP Eskom grant, where 3.5 billion was reduced over the MTF. This is really owing to where we are as a country in terms of electrification. We've done extremely well. We've electrified 95% of households. And now what is left there is to cover the rest of the households, but also to help us deal with alternative energy sources that are needed in the system. Additional reductions are again made in terms of the RBIG, which is the Regional Bulk Infrastructure Grant, to the tune of 52 million. This is also in the indirect component, which further strengthens government's position in terms of trying to limit the use of indirect grants. Reductions in terms of other small grants are also indicated in the schedules of the bill. Then there were conversions also that are taking place in the 24-25 financial year in terms of the MIC. This is really a follow-through from the decision that was taken in the amendment bill, where COGTA would be taking over some of the projects in a few municipalities to assist them in terms of implementation. What has also been great is additional 1.4 billion that has been made in terms of the municipal disaster recovery grant. This is to assist the municipalities that have really suffered the losses in terms of their assets due to the floods that took place early last year. There is an additional 2 billion rand that has been provided to start the smart meter grant. I'm going to speak a bit about that in the next slide. But we're also excited that there is additional funding to the local government system, which is going to flow through the Neighborhood Partnership Development Grant. This is to fund the City Public Employment Program. So this program has really been successful in doing that, in assisting with job creation. So, honorable members, the Treasury is going to be administering an indirect grant for the smart meters. So this is really closely linked with the municipal debt relief program that municipalities that apply and are successful in terms of the commitments, in terms of addressing their challenges with ESCOM will then be eligible for. So this is going to really assist us in terms of reducing the amount of losses in the system, but also ensuring that there's sustainability in terms of continued service delivery improvements, in terms of billing, and really the overall management of municipal finances. The honorable members would be aware also that the urban trading services have been quite under extreme pressure due to failures, some due to maintenance, but some really due to infrastructure that is overstretched. So some of the issues really there are around management, leadership challenges, but also some governance and lack of taking care of assets, basically. And I think the decision was then taken that, because these cities are growth engines of the country, something needs to be done. So we need to introduce reforms in the system that are going to help sustain the delivery of these services. And as a result, the incentives are being introduced in the system that are going to strengthen or use government funding to leverage private sector resources and expertise in trying to help deal with these issues. So for this coming financial year, honorable members, it's just putting in place measures like developing the turnaround strategies so that in the 2025-26, those municipalities that are showing the willingness to do the right thing and the commitment to do so, then would be eligible to receive a new grant, a reform, which will be introduced to help them really address the issues there. This is more of an update to the recommendation of this committee, where they recommended that we use the green drop, blue drop, and the no drop assessments in terms of decisions around infrastructure. So this has been made a condition in 2 of our conditional grants already, which is the Integrated Urban Development Grant, as well as the Municipal Infrastructure Grant. Thanks, Honorable. Back to Wendy.
Unmute. Good morning again, and it's I'm going to take you through the division of revenue clauses. Let's say, put this next slide, please. Thank you. And none of these clauses that's been changed are policy in nature. They basically focused on improved structuring of the clauses to deal with gaps that we've identified in the system. So the first one is dealing with the responsibilities in terms of monitoring indirect grants. Indirect grants, as the committee is aware, does not get transferred to a province or municipality, but is administered by the National Department. And just to make it very clear that the National Department is then responsible for ensuring that both the financial and the non-financial performance on those grants are monitored. So it's just to improve transparency and on how the funds are used. Then with regard to, again, this is an old clause, and it's provided in the past for the Human Settlements Development Grant and the Urban Settlements Development Grant for allocations where municipalities are accredited for housing accreditation level 1 and 2, that the allocations are being made known to them and that these allocations are gazetted. But a few years ago, we split the Human Settlements Development Grant and the Urban Settlements Development Grant to also have an informal settlements partnership grant both for provinces and for municipalities. So what we've done here is just also on terms of those grants that the allocations are then made known to the municipalities. And it's also gazetted. So it's now 4 grants that information is provided instead of 2. Then with regard to the next one, section 14, it is also again an issue just to make it clear that in terms of monitoring compliance, the requirement is to report on the systems that's used to monitor compliance with legislation, because there were a lot of questions on how do you monitor that the monitoring is taking place. Next slide. Then the next one I've already taken you through, and this is just the local government side. The previous one focused on the provincial one. And then in terms of section 20, this is again an issue where there's improved monitoring and credibility given to the process by adding provincial treasuries in the process, where an indirect grant, that is where the grant is administered by a national department and is converted into a direct allocation. That is where the grant is administered by a municipality. We all know that in terms of delegated municipalities, the provincial treasuries oversee the budget process. So it's just to consult the provincial treasuries in this process if they also support that conversion take place and indeed confirm that the municipality has got the capabilities. Then with regard to the last clause change, it relates to disaster grants or immediate disaster grants. And there was a bit of uncertainty, when do you start counting the 100 days, because the funds must be released within 100 days of a disaster. And it's just to indicate that when the declaration is made, that is when the 100 days starts counting. Thank you very much.
Hand over to Kobisa for adjustment appropriation, please. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Cheng. Do you mind granting me control access for the presentation to navigate the presentation, please? I beg your pardon, is it granted?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I don't see the icon for sharing on my side.
Okay, let me assist you. From
Please.
Is it possible to do it for her?
Yes, please.
Please help. There you are. Is this the one? Yeah.
Yes, that is the presentation. If you don't mind just projecting it for me, please.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair, and good morning to everybody on the platform. My name is Tobisa Magazi. I'm a director in the office of the Deputy Director General for Public Finance, Dr. Mampu Modise. I will be taking you through the presentation today on the second adjustments appropriation for 2023-24. In terms of slide number 2, which is a slide intended to provide a bit of context in terms of how we went about doing the second adjustment, as many are aware that the Minister on the 21st of February tabled the second adjustment appropriation along with other publications and tabling of other documents, as well as the presentation of the 2024 National Budget Speech in Parliament. The reason for this second adjustment, colleagues, is that these were necessitated because these were adjustments that were required over and above the appropriation, the second adjustment that was made in 2023. They were such in nature that they were unavoidable, in that we couldn't do without a second adjustment, and we had to effect this. Moreover, the section 213(2) of the Constitution does also provide this sort of provision wherein money may be withdrawn from the National Revenue Fund in terms of an Appropriation Act of Parliament, wherein then the Minister of Finance is given that sort of permit to effect those sort of adjustments. Particularly in terms of Section 12(1) and 2 of the Monies Bill and Related Matters Act of 2009, it provides that that the minister may table a national adjustment budget as envisaged in terms of Section 30 of the Public Finance Management Act, and also provide adjustments to such. So accordingly, this second adjustment has been referred by the National Assembly to the committees of appropriation, which also include consideration by this particular House. I'm not going to delve much, honorable members, on the processing of the bill. As we are sitting today, we are presenting this particular appropriation bill, second adjustment appropriation bill, to the select committee. That much is already known. When it comes to the overview or a summary of the second adjustment, what I would want the honorable members to note regarding this is that the second adjustment basically provides for a net movement of 290 million across different functions, with the main source of these funds coming from goods and services. When it comes to the functions that have been adjusted upwardly, it's mainly to the peace and security cluster as well as the public service administration, whereas the savings itself have been identified predominantly from the community development as well as the economic development functions. And the primary reason for these adjustments have been for the purposes of absorbing the 2023-24 wage agreement increases. As mentioned previously, the net movement of these funds is 290 million. However, when you look into it in terms of the different economic classifications, there is 190 million or so that has been transferred to transfers and subsidies, while 99 million provides for an increase under compensation, with a further 1 million for payments of capital assets. And the bulk of these funds, as already alluded previously, is coming from goods and services. Effectively, the second adjustments affect 9 votes, which will be listed in my next slides. The bulk of the funds are coming really from the Department of Cooperative Governance as a downward adjustment of 400 million, which has been specifically effected to Community Works Program, and I will delve in greater detail in the following slides. A further 40 million of this adjustment, especially the downward adjustment, is money that has been identified under the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. When it comes to the specific details per vote, which I am now currently on slide 5, the ministry, so vote number 1, which is the presidency, receives the 70 million of the second adjustment. The main reason for this adjustment is to cover the administrative and functional requirements for the new Ministry of Electricity. As you will recall that this ministry was set up during the course of the financial year, so it did not at the start of the financial year have a main appropriation. Therefore, we did need to effect these sort of adjustments. And what was indicated by the presidency is that they have limited capacity within their baseline to absorb costs related to this particular new function. And mostly the funds obviously will cater for the administrative and the coordination requirements of this particular department. And the strategic importance of this, I think, is unarguably something that everybody understands and readily understands as to why we would need this sort of function. The second vote that receives that has been adjusted in this instance, it's a downward adjustment of 400 million, as alluded to in the previous slide, is to vote 3, which is the Department of Cooperative Governance. The funds have been adjusted downwardly under the Community and Works Program. The primary reason why this has been done is that the department would have inevitably had incurred a saving in the financial year due to the fact that the department has taken long in terms of its procurement services for a new service provider for the Community Works Program. The next department that receives an allocation is the Department of Home Affairs, which receives an additional 200 million, which is an allocation that seeks to augment the existing allocations for political party funding. As colleagues are aware and honorable members, the political party funding unit was established in terms of the Public Fund Represented Political Parties Act, and those funds were deemed to be insufficient for the financial year, given, of course, that there is increased spending related to the preparatory work for the national elections that are going to be held in May. The next department or next vote that receives an adjustment is the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, which receives an additional 80 million for purposes of hosting the BRICS Summit, which will be held during the course in the new financial year, which starting from 1st of April 2024. The department, as many colleagues would be aware, is susceptible to depreciation or currency fluctuations, given the fact that the operations of the department are happening in a context wherein the transactions would be dollar denominated. Therefore, we do randomly have to also periodically have to adjust their allocations in line with whatever is the fluctuation of the rand at that point in time. And of course, there would be situations when the rand does appreciate, and there would be a saving as a result of that. But in this instance, the department was not able to absorb the costs that are related to the summit, and we had to make this additional adjustment of 80 million. The next adjustment is to vote 12, which is the Public Service Commission, which receives an additional 12 million. And this 12 million is primarily to augment existing allocations for compensation of employees due to the higher than budgeted for 2023-24 public service wage bill. And also to address some of the vacancies, critical vacancies that are existing in terms of the commission as well. As alluded previously, vote 13, which is the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, receives a downward adjustment of 70 million in 2023-24, and a bulk of that funds will be shifted to the presidency for purposes of capacitating the Ministry of Electricity, as well as also to fund the e-cabinet system, which has a funding shortfall. The funding that has been identified under Vote 13 are predominantly under three programs. The administration program under compensation, which is unfilled positions under that particular program, that comes to an amount of around 12 million. When it comes to the expanded public works program, there is a further 8 million that has been identified under that program due to administrative savings that could be identified under that program. The bulk of the funds are predominantly coming from the Property and Construction and Industry Policy and Research Program, owing to delays in terms of appointment of the consultants that are to undertake the preparatory services for the infrastructure South Africa. In terms of the next department of vote is the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, who receive an additional 13 million, 8 million of which is for general goods and services and administrative functions of the department. A further 5 million has been allocated for purposes of the Commission for Gender Equality for them to implement various projects and also to undertake critical research on thematical issues around gender-based violence and femicide, as well as Commissioner's project on female traditional leaders and other projects that the Commission will be implementing during the course or in the remainder of this financial year. The next department, which is Vote 25, which receives an adjustment of 50 million, is the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, which receives an additional 50 million, as already mentioned, for purposes of the 2023-24 Public Sector Wage Agreement. And these increases are particularly for the Justice for Court Services, as well as the National Prosecuting Authority. The last of the group of departments that receive allocations through the second adjustment is the Office of the Chief Justice, Vote 27, which receives an additional 45 million. Again, this adjustment has been made as a response or to offset some of the 2023-24 public service wage adjustment. And the bulk of these funds will be provided to court services as well as judicial education and support. Honorable members and chairperson, that concludes the presentation on behalf of Public Finance. I do have my other colleagues as well who are on standby, who will be able to engage further on any issues of clarity. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kobisa. Can we hand over to you, Mahoshi?
Yes, thank you, Madijeng. Vessel, could you please flight the slides? All right. Thank you. You can go to the first page. Yes. Thank you. And good morning, Honorable Chair and members. I'm going to present the gold and foreign exchange contingency reserve account. And we are here to request an amendment to the Gold and Foreign Exchange Reserve Account Defrayal Act, in short called the GFECRA. So the GFECRA is an account held at the Reserve Bank, and this account captures losses and profits on foreign currency reserve transactions. And it is meant to protect the Reserve Bank against currency volatility. So when the rand exchange rate strengthens against the US dollar and other reserve currencies, the account balances decline. And when vice versa, when the rand depreciates, the balance on the account improves. The last settlement of balances in this account was reached in 2003 to the value of 28 billion. And this was in favor of the central bank. What this amendment to the bill does is it provides for a settlement to be done in times of a profit, because the last time we used the account, or the account had to be replenished, was when it was in a loss. Since then, the value of the account has grown to over 500 billion due to the significant rand depreciation. And so what we are also doing is we are now formalizing the agreement, because what the Reserve Bank Act says is that should there be a need to settle any losses or profits on the account, that this will be done by agreement between the Minister of Finance and the central bank governor. So for the first time now, we are proposing a settlement agreement which will ensure that the necessary buffers are established to protect first the solvency of the Reserve Bank against this volatility in the account, but more importantly, it also talks to how the funds will be used. And we have said, or we have agreed with the SARB that the funds will be used to reduce government borrowing and consequently the growth in debt service costs. So these reforms will be governed by a set of principles that are in the agreement. And basically what these principles are saying, as I said, the critical one is that the agreement is meant to protect the solvency of the SARB. that the distributions should be transparent and they should not be ad hoc. They must be informed by a valuation methodology that between the SAP and the Treasury will have agreed on to determine how much to leave in the account at any given time. And finally, as I said, that the funds should be used to reduce government borrowing. So consequently, between 2024, 25 and 26, 27, the government will draw down 150 billion of the GFECRA balances. And this legislation and the amendment is to formalize this drawdown. And Chair, I think I will stop here because the slides are fairly explanatory. And as you said, members have looked at them and will come in for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Treasury. We have come to the end of the end of our presentations by Treasury. I will now give this opportunity to the members. Please raise your hand and the Secretariat will help me in identifying the hands. So far, I've seen 1, 2, do we have only 2 hands?
So far, yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable Okam.
Just give me a minute, Chairperson. I just want to. There we go. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to Treasury for the presentation that was done. Honorable Chairperson, what we see if we listen to all the meetings that we had with regards to the budget and now this division of revenue as well, it is clear that we are taking from Paul to pay Peter. We are taking money that should actually have gone to service delivery, and we are using it in places where it's being used due to inefficiency of proper government. Let's take, for instance, the trend that we see with regards to money that goes for the public wage bill. We can see again in this presentation that services to the people on the ground are being hampered due to the fact that the public wage bill that goes for money towards a bloated and totally ineffective public wage sector is taken money from the people and services that must have gone to the poor. It's been given to the public wage sector or the public service sector, and again, the people of South Africa is not getting value for our money in that, due to the fact that we know that they are ineffective and that money and the increases that they get will not necessarily lead to an increase in service delivery. So we've got to look at that. Chairperson, with regards to the division of revenue, if you look at that first slide that we were shown and that pie chart, and you see that local government gets less money, and it states there that we must take into account that a big portion of local government money are generated by the various local governments. I would just like to ask on that, have the ineffectiveness of local government to collect their own revenue, as we see all over the country, has that been taken into account when adjusting these amounts? It's one thing to say that, yeah, we know that they get in money, but in the back of our heads, we know that they are not effective in getting that money in. So somewhere there will be big holes that will be created by this. To just say that they do create or collect their own money, but knowing that they won't be able to do that sufficiently or properly, will just kick the can down the road and will create more problems when it comes to local government. Chairperson, the MIG grants, we know that, and we see that every year when the Auditor General brings out the report on the municipalities, There are still a large number of municipalities that use the MIG grants that they get, that was supposed to go to a certain project or a certain road or whatever, that still use that money to help them with their monthly cash flow. They either pay wages or they pay their Eskom bills because of the fact that they don't do debt collecting properly. So we see that happening a lot. It's a double whammy for those municipalities because firstly, the people on ground does not get that project that they wanted completed. And secondly, due to the fact that the MIG grant is not spent correctly, that municipality will in the future be penalized and will not get an increased MIG grant again for other projects. So the question then arises, and we've asked this many times in this committee, is what consequence management will there be? We see this just happening every year, MIG grants that are spent ineffectively. Chairperson, then with regards to the adjustment appropriation as was presented by Mrs. Magatsi, we see again that the presidency gets 70 million for the Minister of Electricity. Now, again, I don't think that we would have been there, that we would have required a Minister of Electricity if something like cadre deployment and the wrong implementation of BBBEE didn't take place in Eskom. If there wasn't that amount of corruption in Eskom, actually there should have been no corruption. We would not have had the electricity crisis that we've got. And again, we do not really see consequence management with regards to the people that were responsible for that. Chairperson, then again, the 200 million rand for Home Affairs with regards to the political party funding, we all know that certain parties ran out of money and could not even pay their own wage bills, to now again take from the public sector, so money that should have gone for service delivery in order to fund political parties who, or a specific political party that will get the main portion of that, due to the ineffectiveness of running their own finances. I think it is shameful to do that. You are taking away from the people money that should have gone for services and paying for ineffectiveness of a political party to run its own finances properly. With regards to the JFECRA, we've got to be very careful when we look at that. We are annually rated by rating agencies such as Standard & Poor's and such as Fitch. Now, to just give you an idea, that Standard & Poor's came and they stated that this transfer could jeopardize the independence of the Reserve Bank. They are very skeptical about this. And Fitch came and they said that the expectations of the budget is unrealistic. What are we going to do when these rating agencies, due to the decisions that were made by the minister here now, are again going to downgrade us, or at least not upgrade us where we hope that we could end up? Have that been taken into consideration with regards to what the effects of this would be? Thank you, Chairperson. I'm covered for now.
Thank you, Honorable Ocamp. Honorable Detroit.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I'll be brief. Honorable Chair, I agree with what Honorable Ocamp said. But something that troubles me is the fact that 1.4 billion is shifted to the Municipal Disaster Recovery Grant, municipalities with flood damage. Now, Chair, what about the damage that was caused as a result of the veld fires that was experienced in the Northwest Province, as well as the Northern Cape? I personally wrote a letter to the minister, both ministers, and inquired with regards to this, and they just basically replied and said, no assistance will be given. So the fact of the matter is, and it was indicated in previous reports, that most of the damage that was incurred in municipal areas where we had those floods was as a result of municipalities.
Honorable Detroit, have we lost you or are you done? It looks like your network was poor. Okay. I'll hand over
Sorry, Chair.
to Honorable Linda Moss.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
Honorable Chair, can I
Hello.
video off?
Okay, Honorable Moss, can you wait a bit? Let's allow Honorable Tutoit to conclude. Maybe switch off your video.
I've done so. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. What I'm getting at, Chair, is that funds that are moved to assist with municipalities again after the municipalities failed to do the necessary. And these funds could have been utilized to assist with food security and to assist to get these farmers to get crops again. And then, Chair, I must put it on record that the Freedom Front does not support the fact that the contingency reserve is being used, and I'm going to call it what it is, plundered to the government's debt. We can't afford it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tutoit. Honorable Linda Moss, come in, please.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody. Chairperson, I will be also, or they want to agree with the Honorable Okam on the issue of the MIC funding. Last year, we have attending, or we have a workshop as the NCOP in the House, where where the National Treasury was actually identified on the slide that most of the municipality is not using the MIC funding for the supposed to be used for infrastructure, particularly in the disadvantaged communities. Chairperson, and also I want to raise the concern that I have with when we're doing the oversight. Taking Parliament to the people September 2023, the MEC of the Western Cape highlight the issue of one of the municipalities or two of the municipalities in the Western Cape who didn't spend the money for the sake that they was giving the money for the infrastructure. The money was be abused and misused and corruption have taken place there. And and if those things is happening, what will National Treasury doing for those municipalities who don't use the big funding for supposed to use it for the supposed to be budgeting for? There's no way that we are not using money where they're supposed to be used. Even on the issue of the human settlement grant, if province is getting a human settlement grant, if they are not spending that grant, like what the president was saying in the State of the Nation address, in the Western Cape, a lot of that money was taken back by National Treasury because they didn't spend the human settlement grant of money we budgeting for human settlement while people still staying in the backyards of their families or of their parents. On the issue of educational grant, we said all the years away with asbestos schools. So here in Western Cape, we have a few of asbestos schools was be identified, where even my home base where I'm staying is 6 asbestos schools. One project I do oversight in January back to the school program in Friedenberg, Panorama School. The school was not be completed and SMMEs was not be paid and the school stands still, the project stands still for 2 years. So I wanted they must investigate this thing of that school or Panorama Primary School in Friedenberg. The last one is my constituency where I deploy in Danone, and there is a school, was also at the secondary school be built. That project is not be finished, and the classrooms and the bathroom sites who has been completed is be vandalized. And now that school is actually in a standstill also for 2 years. So what can we do to fast track this unnecessary loss of money of departments who are not completing the projects? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Linda. Comrade Eunice, you next.
Thank you. Firstly, well, I don't know how to put this, Chairperson, but how does one say? Okay, so we all agree that I think that education is in severe crisis, right? That what we put in money-wise, we don't get in value. And we've raised this repeatedly with Treasury that it's not enough just to give money. It's also important to assist in cooperation with the relevant department, like this would be basic education, to ensure capacity, teachers, infrastructure, and all of that. So I know the questions we put to Treasury sometimes seem unfair because, they're not the government as a whole. There are how many, I think, 30 departments or whatever. And they have to work with those departments, both at national and provincial level. And we obviously raise the questions to Treasury, but obviously we understand that they have to work with other relevant line function departments. But one despairs because, every now and then you see reports by independent experts which point to the poor outcomes of our education system. And if we don't get this right, as we well know, I mean, there's no future of any significant sort in this country, particularly for the poor and disadvantaged. Now, we've raised these questions before, but can they remind us what is being done, what funds are allocated to deal with the broader issues of capacity of teachers, infrastructure, and the like? Secondly, on the MIG grants, it's really bad, as Willie and others point to, Comrade Linda, that is not being spent for what it is meant to. Again, the issue arises of capacity and the broader system of the local government financial system, broader issue, of the local government finance, which has been on our agenda for every year, Comrade Chair, since we came here in 2019 and even before when we were in the other SCOF committee. On the issue of the reserves, it's true we can't alienate the rating agencies, but as important as they are, they're only one consideration. And the way I saw it, maybe I just don't read the same media that Willie Outcome does, and maybe I miss a lot that he reads that may have some validity. I don't know. But while political parties are up in arms, and the rating agencies, one of them at least, I don't know of any other, raises concerns, the technical experts that you see, the people that are on TV and they're called in to comment on the budget, they don't seem to see it like that. I don't know, maybe Treasury can help us. Maybe it's just me catching people who don't see it as the end of the world. And if I look more carefully, most people who are experts and important agencies are seeing it as the end of the world, but I can't see that. But look, this is not an area of expertise of mine, and I doubt any of us really fully understands the issues. They're too complex, right? My series on Comrade Chair, so now it's repeating my words in gobbledygook. What is the other point? Yeah, on felt fires. Can't we look into that? Can't Treasury explain why do we treat felt fires so substantially different from the floods? The floods obviously have devastating effects, right, on a significant number of people, particularly those in the low-lying areas and those who are disproportionately informal settlements, right? Now we understand that. But felt fires are important also. They also lead to destruction of people's livelihoods and lives and property, and they also have an effect on the economy. Why are we so immune to felt fires? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim, and honorable members for raising those important questions. I'll also raise a few adding to what you have raised, but trying by all means to not to repeat. I will start on the division of revenue bill, the first presentation. I think as a committee, we will need to welcome the fact that from ourselves as the committee and the FFC recommendations that we have been presenting to the House are being considered according to this presentation and taken into account. It also, honorable members, remains our concern as a committee when we don't see any consideration of our recommendations as well as that of the FFC and other constitutional institutions. We know it has been an issue that we have raised, and now that we see that our concerns has been given a consideration and the recommendations of those institutions are being considered, we need to welcome that. We have not seen how the recommendations of the budget forum are being taken into account according to this presentation and the budget, the amendment budget as we see it. And SALGA, it has raised this as a concern over and over as we met as a house in our workshops, in our engagement, whatever platform that we had, and also when they appear in front of this committee, they have raised that issue about the budget forum recommendations not being taken into account. If maybe somehow you have taken them into account, it has been an oversight from myself. Please assist us, because we think these forums and these recommendations that we're taking after long deliberations and also engagement and having recommendations with those institutions, it should not be a futile exercise. They should be taken serious and put to use. My last question on that presentation is, how does the current budget assist other spheres of government so as to strengthen their oversight function? I know Honorable Okamp has raised this issue of oversight, and the Honorable Karim and Honorable Linda, everybody has raised this issue of oversight and functioning of this other spheres of government, and while ensuring service delivery, we need to look into that. But also we need assistance, and taking into consideration what the Honorable Karim said, some of the things they are implemented by the sector departments. But you as a Treasury, what we need from you is to justify the decisions that you have taken in as far as either reducing or increasing budget or directing budget to other departments, so that when we approve this bill, we should have an understanding of why this is happening. And the red flag that has been there, I don't know what color is it now, because since we've started engaging from the starting of this term, we've been raising the issue of the MIC funding, the conditional grant, that they are not being used in most cases for what they're meant for. So what is it that you're doing as National Treasury? We know that there are other departments at the provincial level that are oversighting there are other role players that are oversighting. But over and above, we can't just say they are there and not do anything. I want to believe that this budget must talk to those issues, must respond to those concerns that we have had as we engaged. On the second adjustment appropriation, what I want to know is what is the service delivery impact of the reduction of the affected departments, particularly the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. I'm saying this given the much needed infrastructure building and maintaining in our economy, as well as the job creation. Because I want to believe that when we deal with the infrastructure, we address the infrastructure as per the priorities of the government of the day. We will be dealing with or we will be addressing many many issues in as far as the economy, job creation, and other issues that are going to make life easier or better for the disadvantaged, and also their advantage, because business is also going to benefit from that. My second question on that bill is I just want to know as to how do we avoid the scenario where funds are moved from service delivery programs to salaries. This must not sound like one is against the increment of the salaries of the public servants, because if we don't have public servants that are paid well, public servants that are taken care of, then we won't be able to deal with the corruption that we are hearing, we are seeing every day that are happening in the departments. So it is important that we have this, but there's this scenario. Can one get a clarity from the Treasury? My last but one question is request that please explain what you have called savings under administrative function. Through the presentation, there's where you are talking about savings of budget under the administrative function. So one would like to know what do you mean by that? If possible, please give us a breakdown for this committee to have an understanding and be on the same page of understanding as you, Treasury. And my last question is, how does this budget provide checks and balances to ensure that allocations are used for their intended purposes? This last question, I'm just saying it as an emphasis because all other members who have spoken about it, and as this committee, we are known as the Appropriations Committee, I think also coming from the NA, even when we met as a joint committee, we are raising this. There should be value for money, and the budget must speak to the needs of the people and the service delivery. Good example given by Honorable Moss when she was giving examples of issues that are happening in her constituency or in the areas where she identified. But then we know those are the issues of education. But what is your role as the Department of Treasury, having given or allocated the sector department and the money, but there's no value, there's no the outcome of the allocation. So what we want to see is value for money, and as we always say, consequence management must take place. Thank you. I will now hand over to Team Treasury. Osmari Jane, you will handle the team from your side, because I think maybe you will need to respond, each and every one of you who have maybe presented, or you will allocate as per your expertise. Over to you, National Treasurer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members, for those questions, which are not easy to find answers for, because they reflect the issues that we are all wrestling with on the issue of value for money. It is a big issue that we are wrestling with. So I will start with a few, and then the team will then add to the others. So if I may start with Honorable Onkamp, right? With Honorable Will Onkamp. The concern around stealing from Paul to pay Peter, and the reallocation to wage bill. So I think what we have done in terms of reprioritization from other programs that are not performing in any case, and then supporting the pressures that have emerged, just reflects, the challenge that we face as government in terms of reprioritizing, in terms of the trade-offs, particularly given the constrained fiscal environment that we are faced with, that we can also not continue just to borrow to pay for the wage bill, as an example, and the impact of that, because part of what we want to achieve is fiscal consolidation. So the reprioritizing has been done, and part of the money plus some of the increases that we experience in terms of the revenue partly supported the wage bill, which was important also in terms of the impact of the agreement on the functions like education and health, and security cluster. And that, I think, on our members, you also appreciate the importance also of ensuring that those highly labor-intensive sectors are not also hampered in terms of having to respond to the agreement in the wage bill. Because what we would have seen is that they would still pull money out of goods and services, out of infrastructure, to actually pay for the wage bill if they didn't receive any support. So with the support that they were prioritized for, then at least we were able to save goods and services, and to some extent infrastructure, so that we can still drive efficiency that we are working on in these sectors. So I think for me that really would be the response, an issue of reprioritization. But I think also what we have to note on our members, some of the cuts from infrastructure also do reflect also the performance that we are also seeing, because we don't see that much spending that reflects that the cuts are actually problematic in terms of service delivery. When you look at the proportion of spending, even in the current year, well, for provinces and local government. So we will still expect that there would be some underspending. So that reflects that in terms of the impact necessarily of services, it may not be that, but it's something that we are then looking at in terms of the reforms that we are looking at for infrastructure, that we are hoping we can strengthen even the incentives in our grants that will then demand the institutional reforms and performance. Because at the moment, we feel that the grants that we are giving to local government, as an example, for infrastructure, the incentives are not strong enough. So we are exploring with regards to starting with the metros, which is what we are talking about, utilities reform program that we are working on, with much strength incentives that we are working on with the MDBs, just to be able to see whether we can strengthen incentive to ensure that the institutional performance that we're expecting, in terms of how these sectors, how these services are managed, the skills, in those services, the investments in the bulk that is required, the investment in maintenance, the collection of revenue that we are seeing is a major problem that makes those services that should not be unsustainable. But now we can see the revenue is going down. So we are working on that program, which we think that having learned lessons, perhaps it can help us to do more broadly, so that we can actually incentivize performance and in a consistent way, which is something that we have a problem with. So I think the second question is around the local government share that is always said to be not adequate. And I think, Honorable Chair, the point you are raising about SALGA and Budget Forum is probably related to this issue, because I'm not aware of any recommendations that came from the Budget Forum that has not been taken through. Some may be still in process, and so some of this may actually reflect the aspirations of SALGA versus Budget Forum, which is made up of SALGA's Budget Council, and we also invite the MECs and the Minister of COGTA. So if I may, reflect on the issue of the vertical split and the inadequacy that is being reflected for local government. I think the first point that I want to make is that the allocation that goes to local government comes from the same pot that also allocates for provinces, for national government functions. So it's the same pot. There is no other pot somewhere that we can draw from in terms of how much the national government borrows and how much it actually collects in revenue. It's the same pot. And that pot necessarily will then have to take into consideration the powers and functions and the potential to raise revenue. So now when you look at how is allocated for provinces that absolutely have very limited revenue raising powers, only about 3%, which, by the way, they exploit to almost to the maximum. Every year, they're always looking at how can we actually improve this revenue from this 3% of powers that we have. And the national functions also the same. So now, so this is the pot out of which we fund. So now, and I don't think anybody that says local government is underfunded can also say what function in this pot that is, queuing up for this money is overfunded. Because necessarily, if we have to increase for local government without the growth in the revenue, which, by the way, we can show that for the past 15, 20 years, when the revenue was improving, we have always been biased towards local government. Its share increased from 3% to now around 10%. So now what is hindering us now is the fact that we still have a challenge now in terms of the slow growth in the revenue. But even that, you are going to see that the local government share is the strongest growing compared to other shares of government. So now I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that if we say it's underfunded, the issue is who is overfunded, where we can actually just take money without affecting other functions. So I think what we have to accept is that there is fiscal constraints, that all the functions in government, there is none that we can say is fully funded and overfunded. Therefore, we can just shift the money. I think what we know is that all functions of government can do better in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. And I think that's the point that honorable members have raised. And local government can do better in terms of exploiting the revenue function powers that they have. And I don't think we should be saying that let's take into consideration their failure to collect revenue and make up for that. Because I'm pretty sure that even if we can double the allocation to local government, with the current inefficiencies, even in terms of spending, and inefficiency in revenue collection, that will be like pouring money into the leaking bucket, in my view. So I do think we need to correct the institutional challenges that actually is causing inefficiency in the local government system in terms of collecting revenue. That actually is due, because there is no way that we can say even the metros and all this actually don't have capacity to collect revenue. I think it's an issue of how do we exploit this capacity, but we are also looking at how do we enhance this revenue sources of the municipalities. So in terms of looking at revenue, I think the program that we are running now of revenue enhancement, that also is backed up by the debt relief program that is linked to ESCOM bailouts. That we are seeing it also as really giving us a kick in terms of focusing on the whole revenue management, the value chain of revenue, because although the bailouts or the debt relief is focused on energy or electricity, but the program is designed to ensure that all the aspects of failure in the revenue in these municipalities we are addressing. So that is why we also have put forward through reprioritization money for smart meters. That also is still small allocation relatively, but it is gonna also help us as a seed in terms of addressing these problems of non-payment and the bigger issues on revenue. So my view is we need to do all we can do to ensure that local government exploit fully the revenue powers that they have. Because if they don't, it means somebody has to pay. So it means we have to tax someone elsewhere to pay for them. And I don't think we are able to do that, given that we can't even tax enough to provide for what government is already committed to in the government system. So in terms of the MIC, that we are saying that is still used for other things. So I think it really touches in some of the things that I have already raised in terms of how efficient that money is being used for this and the impact of the cuts, because they may not even translate into reduction in services given the inefficiencies that are there in the system. So I think that there is an effort here also, because what's always done immediately, we always look at where is the money and whether it's been spent on that. And if there is no money, it's not being spent on that. So we offset, obviously, from equitable share. And we have always thought that will be enough incentive for municipalities also to do what they're supposed to do in the correct way. But besides that, I think the efforts that COCTA also through MISA is putting in place is actually responding to this problem of underspending, and that leads to reallocation and loss of money by others, and sometimes money has been having to return to the fiscus. So there is also a huge effort there that COCTA can actually answer to, but that is also meant to address these problems. So I will allow Wendy maybe to pick up on some of the issues on the disasters and others while I'm looking at what is still outstanding from the Division of Revenue issues. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. What I'll do is also just maybe to indicate the division of revenue that we presented in terms of, if you take own revenue into account, is just taking into account the current own revenue that municipalities collect. But if they optimize their own revenue sources, and there's a lot of scope still to do that, and National Treasury do have programs in place to assist municipalities with own revenue collection as well. And that even includes the bigger municipalities, including metros, to optimize own revenue collection. That percentage will increase even more. So what that graph shows is actually including the current inefficiencies in own revenue collection. So it is not based on if they collected optimally what that division would be. Then with regard to the disasters, and maybe just to indicate that there's a whole lot of areas that can be classified as a disaster. And it's not just floods. Basically, floods are most probably the most frequent that happens, most probably followed by fires. But which happened the least, but it's got really the most severe impact is actually drought. So all those are defined as disaster and can be classified as a disaster. What first happens if a disaster happens and it's small in nature, it is seen as a localized disaster, and it can adequately be funded by the municipality or the province concerned. But if a disaster is too large for a municipality to cope with or a province to cope with, then it gets classified as something as a provincial disaster by the National Disaster Management Centre. So to first access money from the National Disaster Management Centre is that a disaster is too large for the municipality or the province to cope out of own funding. So that is quite an important point. And then secondly, funding from the fiscus for disasters are targeted basically at two areas. The one is targeted at public infrastructure that's damaged by disasters. And the reason for that is if it's private infrastructure that's damaged by the disaster, the private institution is required to undertake the necessary insurance to fund that infrastructure, and there are funding of infrastructure available. Even municipalities are required, particularly the larger municipalities, to take out insurance on the infrastructure. Then a second category that's considered for government funding for disasters are the indigent. For example, indigent farmers, if they're hit by a drought, then they fund it through funding that's made available from the fiscus. So that's another important consideration to keep in mind. So what is required to be done? First, there's a whole range of funding instruments available to fund disasters. And National Treasury is currently in the process of developing a paper in that regard that will deal with all the instruments available. And as soon as it's available, we will also share it with the committee. So it's work in progress. So that will then indicate what tools and instruments are available to fund disasters. So the private sector is required to take out insurance. And with regard to grant funding, it is not just let's say it's a gym. I think it's you managing.
Still fine, madam.
Okay, and then what is important is that own funding be redirected as a first step. Then secondly, also looking at existing conditional grants that's underfunded to reprioritize that towards the disaster. There's provisions in the Division of Revenue Act to allow for that. And then there's immediate disaster response money. And then there's also the longer term rehabilitation that's funded through the normal budget process. So this is definitely complex issues, but and like I say, it's not just floods that's funded through the fiscus. Yeah, thanks.
Perhaps, Komisa, can you and the team respond on the issues about the service delivery impact on the cuts and where the cuts are coming from. I think there were a number of questions on that.
Thank you so much, Mali Jeng. We do have several of the public finance colleagues on the call. I think I will invite Dr. Rendani Randela to first come and respond to the specific question that was raised on the specific impact to the DPWI allocations, and also just to reflect on whether there is what could be the implication to such. And I will also invite other colleagues, specifically Ms. Gillian Wilson, if she is on the call, just to give some additional reflections on the political party funding, and specifically the issues about or the concern that was raised by Honorable Willie Ocamp regarding the diversion of resources. I think the third aspect, or something that I think we need to respond to, would be the other chief directors on the call. If you may just also raise your hands and reflect for your specific clusters or what you anticipate to be an impact of some of these cuts. The one general issue that was raised by the chairperson is with regards to what is meant by administrative costs and functions. Honorable Chair, what we refer to in terms of that is whether these cuts have been effected or reductions have been effected. It's in fact in goods and services. So the impact is right across going to be on goods and services. So that is what we mean. So generally, it's to your non-core goods and services are plenty of the allocations really, wherein you would be looking into transfers, looking into items such as travel and subsistence. Of course, in the one instance of the CWP, those are money that are sitting under goods and services, but intended for the CPWP program. But generally, the reductions have been effected in non-core goods and services in certain instances. As I've mentioned, I'll invite Dr. Rendani to take the floor and respond to the issues that have been raised specifically on DPWR.
Thanks, Govisa, and good morning, honorable members. I will deal with the question raised by Honorable Ocamp and Honorable Chair regarding shifting of funds from service delivery areas to compensation of employees in relation to the adjusted appropriation bill. I will talk specifically to the community works program. Broadly, we share your concerns regarding the shifting of funds from non-delivery areas to the areas that others can call consumption areas, like compensation of employees. But the reality specifically with CWP, for example, that's the money that we can say it's declared underspending for the current financial year. And the provision for COE going forward, it's not from CWP. That provision is only for in-year, because that money is the money which is not going to be spent in the current financial year. It's money that has already been declared by CWP, mainly because there have been some delays with the signing of contract with the service providers, and that contract has been rendered irregular. And again, the impact on service delivery, if we look at the adjusted estimate, the publication which was produced during MTBPS, the target for the number of job opportunities was 250,000 for the year. And currently they are standing at 258,000. So they've already surpassed that target, despite the declared underspending of 400 million as a result of the delays in signing these contracts. What are we doing going forward? We have engaged with the department, and we are aligned in terms of reconfiguring the program itself going forward, both in terms of the targeted recipients, and likely the DG agrees with the observation in terms of the targeted recipient of the programs. And over and above that, going forward, part of it has been redirected towards PEP, Public Employment Initiatives. So it will still be for the same purpose, job creation, but now under PEP and no longer CWPs. That's a portion of it, I think 800 million going forward. That was tabled in the February budget. And I think the other question raised by the chair is, what are we doing to make sure that funds are used for the intended purpose? One of the budgeting tools that we do is to earmark funds, where powers could either be with National Treasury or Parliament in terms of the alternative proposal to use those funds. And over and above that, Section 5 of the Appropriation Bill or Stroke Act, it also gives the parameters within which the shifting of funds can happen. In the main, the alternative use of funds cannot be done for certain categories, cannot be done without Parliament approval or the National Treasury approval. I will end here and go over to my colleagues, Gillian. Thanks, Chair and honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. I will respond to two areas that was raised by Honorable Okam. The one is in relation to the 200 million that is allocated to Home Affairs as additional funding to the Political Parties Representative Fund. This is an in-year allocation, and it is just addition to the existing baseline in the Political Party Representative Fund, and it will assist political parties to deal with the additional costs relating to the upcoming national and provincial elections. With regard to the funding that was identified from Public Works, I think most of the funding will come from project preparation. We made sure it will not have an effect on service delivery. There was some underspending last year in project preparation, and we just wanted to make sure that all the money that's on the baseline will be spent. There were some delays for some of the project to appoint service providers, but there is sufficient money in the baseline to deal with all the existing infrastructure project. So I think the money identified will not have an impact on service delivery. I think that's the two areas I wanted to respond to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillian. To the other colleagues, do you have any supplementary points that you need to make? But I don't see any hands up as chairperson. So I think that concludes then the responses coming.
I think Spencer can comment on the education question. I hope he just joined. Yeah.
Superb. Thank you so much, Memali Chang. Spencer.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues and honorable members. Good morning. This is Spencer Janari. I'm from Public Finance in the Treasury. Apparently there were some questions on education. I've got some of them and I will talk to them. And if there are any that I missed, you can just pass them on as well. So the one was around plans in relation to the in-service training of teachers. And there's meant to be an overall plan to improve the serving teachers. As you know, things are changing. Not just the curriculum, but the requirements of the world out there, they're changing as well. And so teachers now, even if they were very well qualified, they still need to keep up to date with the new requirements and changes as they're happening out there on the one hand. And on the other hand, there are also teachers who maybe are not coping and also need support. And there's meant to be a program of support for them. Teachers, like other professionals, also have to get a certain number of training points each. I think the cycle is over 2 years, and that whole system, the continuous professional teacher development system, is administered by the South African Council on Educators. So there are still some issues there around what constitutes accredited programs for the CPTD, for this continuous professional teacher development, but there certainly is an overall program in place for that. And then, of course, that is overall linked to the overall in-service training of teachers in general. That was the one. And then there were some other questions apparently around the state of some of the schools, some schools that were still asbestos schools that are still around. We have 2 infrastructure grants that are dedicated to addressing infrastructure related problems, whether they relate to the asbestos schools, and that is meant to be a priority of the sector, or any other unsafe school structures. That would be the priority of the sector in terms of infrastructure. That includes the provision then of safe and appropriate sanitation for children at schools, and then also dealing with those that have buildings that are unsafe in a variety of ways, including unsafe because they're made of asbestos. The vandalization of schools is difficult to plan for, and so it is something that the sector and provinces need to address as it happens, and then put measures in place to try and prevent it from happening where there are flashpoints in the province. But that is an ongoing problem, and the provincial education departments need to deal with that on an ongoing basis. As I say, it's difficult to plan ahead for. You don't know which schools are going to be vandalized, and if you do, you should prevent it rather than planning to fix it afterwards. I don't know if there were any other questions, honourable members, or if any of my colleagues can remember any. But just maybe to add as a last point is to say that I think we all collectively are concerned about the performance of our education sector and of learners in general. It is, from our perspective anyway, we feel that the focus of addressing these concerns and the challenges that are experienced across the sector. I mean, obviously interventions have to be made at a whole range of levels, but that we certainly would hope that that the focus is on fixing things at a foundational level. By that I mean addressing some of the basic areas, reading at the foundation level, the teaching of numeracy and mathematics at those levels, and even investment in early childhood development. And we think that the benefits of investing a lot more effort and resources at those levels will pay off in the longer term and will lead to an improved education sector as a whole. But yeah, there is certainly a concern around the overall performance of our education sector. Some of the metrics indicate that there are improvements, but they're too slow and they're too few. And so we do need some more pushing on many levels in that regard. Thanks, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. So maybe, Honourable Chair, before we hand over to you, let me also comment on the question that you also asked, and I think it came in different words from other members about how other spheres of government? Well, how does the budget talk to strengthening the oversight and perhaps over municipalities and for provinces over provinces? So what I want to say there is that the budget still allocates quite a bit of money that has not been cut to a great extent to support capacity building. So I think the capacity building issue and the oversight issue, in my view, it's not the shortage of money. So when you look at some of the conditional grants, there are conditional grants and allocations that are meant to support capacity. You know, MSIG in COCTA, US MFIP program for financial management, and we have got, you know, various grants for financial management. And then in each one of the infrastructure grants, there is often an allowance for capacity building that, you know, for national and then for the targeted organs of state. So the problem is not money. The challenge is how do we make this capacity building effective and sustainable, so that you don't build capacity today and tomorrow's other, you know, when the new cycle comes, different people, you have got different challenges. I think that's really part of the challenge that we have in terms of the sustainability that comes also from the governance issues that then will determine, you know, the kind of leadership and skills that you have in the local government, and the capacity also to even absorb that capacity that is being provided. I think that's the one of the issues that we are actually wrestling with, and I don't think we have got absolute answers that we can give you, Honorable Chairperson. It is a struggle that I think also struggles from, you know, various levels that needs to be looked at to ensure that the money we get value for money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Team Treasury. Thanks for the responses. I see members want to have a second bite. And if I allow you, Honorable Ocamp, everybody else will want to come in, and will still have to give Treasury another slot for them to respond to your questions. I don't know if time is in our favor. The buses are leaving the villages at 12:30.
It's just maybe I've missed it, but I did not receive an answer to my question with regards to Defrayment and the Standard & Poor's as well as Fitch grading agencies and their commentary. Maybe I've missed it, but I don't think that question of mine was answered. If Treasury can just maybe answer that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Apologies, it wasn't answered. So I suppose Mahoshi and team.
Before you come in, Asmadi Jane, just hold on, please. Who's Vessel Molman?
Chair, Vessel works with me, Mahoshi, from Asset and Liability Management, and he will take the response. But I would just like to say, Honorable Ocamp, we have seen the comments that Standard & Poor's and Fitch have made with regard to the concerns around GFECRA jeopardizing SARB's independence. We will be meeting with all the rating agencies in the next 2 weeks. And in those rating agencies, we will take them through the methodology. And just to say that what we are doing is not new. Other countries have normalized these types of relationships with their central banks. And so what we're doing is normalizing, because as I said, in 2003, the tables had turned and the account was in a negative, and it was through an agreement between the central bank governor and the Minister of Finance that we as the Treasury paid money into the account. And now the funds are now way too high and out of the ordinary, which is why we have advised the governor and the minister that let's enter into an agreement that has got a very set number of principles. And at the top of that is the protection of the solvency of the SARB. So we will not undermine the independence of the SARB, and that's written in the agreement that will be signed between the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank Governor. I would like Wessel to just come in and talk about the benefits of the GFECRA to government's debt and government's gross borrowing requirement. And also just to say that we also met with market participants. This is what we do after every budget. We go on, we have meetings with them and with the banks. And so far, we've received very positive feedback from them with regard to this because of the fact that it allows us to reduce our auctions and therefore the crowding out effect that the state has in the market through borrowing is reduced, and we make space for corporates. But Wessel can come in and add. Thank you.
Thank you, Makhoshi Ndlovukazi. Wessel?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to agree what Makhoshi is saying, I believe that the new settlement agreement is actually, protecting the SARB and the National Treasury in the way that we're going to disperse the funds. So definitely not a weakening of the independence of the Reserve Bank. If we look at our interactions also with the rating agencies, it's also very important to note that basically all the rating agencies as a standard kind of item raise concerns regarding South Africa's high and rising debt to GDP ratios. So when you look at the new framework that we actually implemented, or the fiscal framework, and the use of the GFECRA funds would be actually then used to reduce government's gross borrowing requirement. Through that, that will reduce then the increase in the stock of debt, also then the debt service costs. So going forward, that should actually provide some fiscal space, hopefully, for government. If you look at debt service costs over the medium term compared to our projections of during the MTBPS, you would see that debt service costs over that period will be actually around 30 billion lower compared to MTBPS. On the side of the debt and the debt to GDP ratios, one should also note that the number has been revised downwards from about 77.7% during the time of the MTBPS to a figure of 75.3% of GDP. Also, the ratio of debt service costs to the revenue also stabilized in the year of 25-26. So all of those actually bear positive, to the opinions of, I would say, of the opinions of the rating agencies. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Team Treasury. Maybe I would like to give you a podcast as we came to the conclusion of the deliberations on your presentation. I would like, I hope I'm not misrepresenting the committee members. I would like to request Team Treasury to please get us a report on the budget forum recommendations once the processing is done. I'm saying this because when we meet with the SALGA, they always raise this, and as they will raise it, we should know that National Treasury has done its part on the fullest. when I ask questions, I did raise that we take into consideration issues that are raised by other institutions or stakeholders. So SALGA being one of our main or our major stakeholder as a local government association. So it's very important what they are raising. So please, through the Secretariat Team Treasury led by Osmadi Jane, if you can please actually it should I'm selling it to the committee so that it's a resolution that we take as a committee that please by Friday can you, or maybe if it's not possible by Friday, indicate when can you give us that report on the budget forum. I see some Treasury, Osmari Jeng is indicating that it's fine, we will get that. And once we get that, we will send that report to honorable members of the committee. Let me take this opportunity. Is there anything else before this? Before we close, Secretariat? Minutes? We don't have minutes.
We have three sets of minutes, Chairperson, that are outstanding.
Oh, I'm looking at the time. Okay, we have 3 sets of the minutes. Can we flight the first set? Team Treasurer, you can be excused, and other stakeholders, if you want to be excused from the meeting, we'll just need a quorum of the members. Do we have a quorum before we even start?
Yes, Chairperson, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's flight the first set. The meeting of the 7th of December, 2022. And let's move page 1. The spellings there. Page 3. Page 4. Honorable members, please indicate if there's anything that you want to talk to. Okay, this was the meeting which was chaired by Honorable Muhai, as requested by myself and the committee whip. Thank you very much. Can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection?
Chairperson, Commissioner for Minutes, Karim moves.
Pardon, Honorable Karim, you moving?
Sure.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder?
Second, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable
Point of order, Chair. Point of
Pardon?
order, Chair.
Point of order, Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Chair. Just on Mr. Karim proposing adoption of the minutes, when he wasn't in attendance at that meeting.
Can you,
is that due?
Was.
Can we check on attendance, please?
Yeah.
Let's check. We don't need to do that. I see the last sentence were being.
Chairperson,
Yeah.
if you look at attendance, you'll see my name's included there, as far as I saw.
Okay.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Let's confirm for everybody.
No, that's fine, Chair. We take Mr. Karim's word. It just I just to check it. Thank you.
No, it's not my word. You could be right, but as far as I know, it's present. It says present.
He might have not been well, but he did attend the meeting.
And I got no bonus for it, Chairperson.
Yes, it
No
is
bonus.
attend the meeting.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Chairperson, I think I remember now. I think Honorable Karim attended the meeting, but he was unable to participate, but he was present in the meeting because he was sick.
Thank you. Thank you. I think your concern has been addressed, Honorable Ryder. Can we then move? to the second set. The first set is duly adopted. Let's go to the second set. 22nd Feb. Okay, let's move. Page 5 now. Content. Page 6. And 7. Page 8. And 9. Can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes, honorable members?
Yes, I move for adoption of the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
honorable
second,
member.
Chairperson. Eunice seconds.
Seconder, honorable Karim, thank you. The last set. I'm sorry, Honorable Linda, I didn't see your hand. I saw it after there was a seconder. Sorry about that. Page 2, attendees and apologies. Continuation of attendees. It was a well-attended meeting. Up to page 4. Now we are on page 5. Page 6, 7 now. Page 8. And that's the end of the minutes. Can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes?
I so move, Chairperson Linda Moss.
Thank you, Honorable Moss, for moving for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection of the discussion on a set date. Who's my second?
Mama Rekhane, second.
Honorable Mama Rekhane, seconding. Thank you very much, honorable members. This set of minutes is also duly adopted, and thank you so much, honorable members. I know you are rushing for the sitting now, and for those who will be connecting, you're lucky. Some of us, we have to go there. Thank you very much, honorable members, and I'm wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, my whip. Thank you, the pilot. Thank you, Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lomo and the team. Lubabalo.
Don't leave the chair, solo parents. Leave the chair.
Ugula phansi. Inkinga aziphumi. Thank you.
All right, Chair. Have a good one.
Thank you.